channels for the boats to go through. When we
All right, if everybody's ready, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Let's see, we're going to start with a moment of silent reflection for our first responders and members of the armed forces, followed by an invocation by Deputy Teddy Floyd with the Indian River County Sheriff's Office, and the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Tim Zork. Everybody will please rise.
Father, we thank you. We thank you for this day. We thank you for our commissioners. We thank you for all, my sheriff and all the chiefs and everyone in their respectable positions. God, we thank you for our community. We thank you for having the wisdom and understanding to understand the needs of our community. God, we ask that you bless our community. We've been very fortunate, very understanding, very loving. And today, God, we ask that you continue to bless Indian River County, our families, our children, our schools, our educators. God, let us continue to work together. And we'll be ever so careful to give you the praise. Let us say amen.
Please join me and face the flag for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, gentlemen, is there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Madam Chair, I have two items, please.
Sure.
I'd like to add under 14D, my commission matters, just a brief discussion on a preemption bill that's up in Tallahassee that impacts one of the ordinances that we passed. And secondly, I would like to ask just for a moment of personal privilege to continue my coaching lessons for Commissioner Solari immediately following this.
Okay, fantastic. All right, anything else, gentlemen?
Madam Chair, move approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher and a second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Commissioner Solari,
Commissioner.
there was a sporting event last night that estimated 1 billion people worldwide watched. Would you happen to know what that event was?
Now, you mean last night or the night before that?
I meant Sunday night. Yeah, I stand corrected. Sunday night.
Night event which destroyed productivity throughout America on Monday. That event?
That event, yes, sir.
Yes. No, I told you to waste my time watching that event while you and some others were, stuffing your face with Cheetos watching that. I was reading a book, a biography of Benjamin Franklin. And as a good conservative, it's clear, and having almost finished the biography, I can tell you that Benjamin never played football, nor was football even around at the time. And as a good conservative, anything that wasn't around at the time of the founding certainly couldn't have the type of value to take up my time. So, no football.
Well, that leaves a lot of things out there.
Yeah, so you can just go ahead and throw away that tablet you got there and take this monitor screen, get rid of that. The microphone can go, or your cell phone can go. A lot of things were not.
Wait, cell phone?
Necessities you do have to adjust to
Well,
on a daily.
so now it's just a judgment of what's necessity or not.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And football is
So,
certainly nobody's
so
necessity.
Bob, I obviously you had no interest, so I won't bother with the teams or who won or who played. But
Sensible.
what America is still talking about today was the halftime show. So, Bob, do you know the two Latin America divas that were the featured part of the Super Bowl halftime show?
Yes, because once again, I'll have to remind you that while I may not watch football, I am, do pay some attention to the news. I do find it unfortunate that two half-naked women were bouncing around in front of Americans for some halftime show. I find that really problematic in the day of
I think
hashtag Me Too.
I think we've gone down a rabbit hole. So
Well,
with that,
I just want to know if he knew their
I
names.
am.
of Shakira and J-Lo.
I have to say
Yes,
I'm very proud
good.
that you know that.
Yeah, I'm
so.
very excited. There's hope for you, Commissioner.
All right.
Thank
so-
you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that.
Thank you. We are going to move on to proclamations and presentations, but,
Thankfully.
but before we get there, I just want to remind everybody that we do have a 10:30 shade meeting, so we will be taking a break at 10:30 and reconvening, and we'll announce that at that time. Next item on our agenda is a presentation on air show parking by Mr. Rob Lucas, Vice President of the Board of Directors for the 2020 Vero Beach Air Show. Welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Attorney Reingold, Administrator Brown. We come before you today to formally request use of the administration parking lot and the administration lobby during the air show April 25 and 26 for our volunteers for parking as well as restroom facilities. And then from here they will be bused over to the airport and then return at the end of the show. We've done this the past 4 times, so.
I don't think there's any issue with that.
We've done this numerous times before for the air show. Have no issues, and happy to do that and contribute and help out to this great community event.
Thank you.
And Jason, if we could just make sure we send a notice to all the constitutional officers that we have committed the parking to the air show volunteers.
So there's
Yeah.
no conflict.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Marty, you can't stand there and not say something. Tell us a little bit of Blue Angels. Come on, man.
What can we
Let's
expect?
get this thing teed up and fired off, man.
Well, I was just here to call in the airstrike in case you said no. Thank you.
Marty, remember, tell them to fly low, fly fast, and fly loud, right? That's the three rules. Exactly, yep.
But don't hit any birds this time.
Yeah. So, well, we're looking forward to a great show. Thank you guys for all your hard work and all the volunteers, and we're glad to help anywhere we can. All right, thank you.
All right. Our next presentation is going to be a presentation or proclamation honoring Dr. Teresa Floyd, PhD. This will be presented by Commissioner Flesher. Floyd,
Come on up,
come
Doc.
on up. And any family or friends you might have with you that might want to come up?
Just a few.
Don't be shy.
Come on up. Yeah. Gather around the podium. Good morning, and thank you, Madam Chair, for the
Good morning.
opportunity and occasion to
God
present
bless
this
you.
proclamation.
I honor you.
Yes,
I'm a pastor.
yes. And
I'm so humble.
Dr. Floyd is, over the years, not just today, but throughout the years as we served in uniform, she prayed for us each and every day and will call upon us to meet with her so she can pray for our safety and the public safety. And I want to say thank you publicly. Thank you, Dr. Floyd.
You're so welcome. I'm humbled.
Well, without further ado, I'll present this proclamation honoring Dr. Teresa Floyd, PhD. Whereas Indian River County celebrates African American pioneers who, through their service to the business, public, and elected arenas, have paved the way for this and future generations. And whereas Dr. Teresa Floyd has devoted her life to faith, family, and community. And whereas Teresa and her husband of 54 years raised a community-focused family of 6 sons and 1 daughter in Indian River County since taking residence here in 1993. And whereas Teresa was emphasized education to all she has met, earning her bachelor's degree, her master's degree, and doctorate degrees through Jacksonville Theological Seminary, and then guiding many talented men and women to the completion of their undergraduate and graduate studies. Whereas Teresa founded New Hope Pentecostal Church in Orange Park, Florida, serving as the executive administrator, the board member, and evangelist, deaconess, and choir director. And whereas Teresa served in the town of Orange Park
as the town council member and a school counselor, a teacher, canvassing board member, and ultimately being recognized with her husband and her children as the most outstanding black family in America in the town of Orange Park. And whereas Teresa currently serves as pastor and chief executive of the Faith and Deliverance Ministry of Vero Beach, and through which she combats addictions, supports those in need of food and shelter, and performs their corporal and spiritual works of mercy with the local community. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the pioneer spirit and the civic contributions of Dr. Teresa Floyd have greatly enriched the Indian River County and the Treasure Coast, and that the board extends its sincere thanks for her outstanding efforts. Duly adopted this 4th day of February 2020 and signed by all 5 county commissioners.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Dr. Floyd.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's an honor. I am humble. Hebrews 6:10, God said he would not forget your labor of love. He's not unjust that he forgets your labor of love. So this is my day. I'll pay off for labor in love. And my motto is never look down on a man unless you pick him up. Thank you so much.
Come on up. Oh, okay. Oh, you.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, come on up.
Yeah, right in the middle. There should be a little line on the floor.
A little more.
That little dot still on the
There you go.
And we get folks
right
on both
there.
sides. Maybe get on the other side. Come on the other side here. Yep.
Got to split the group.
Yep. There we go.
There you go. Doc, how about the proclamation? You like the proclamation?
Yeah, Teddy, come on.
Teddy.
Well, Teddy, you can't
A
stand in
little
front of her.
No.
Your daddy was no glass maker.
Y'all ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's do one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
That's how I knew you were going to be on time today.
You always show up on time for your mom.
Yep.
All right. Next item is going to be approval of the minutes of the November 5th and November 12th
Madam Chair, move
meeting
for both.
and the collective bargaining
Yep.
impasse.
And the collective bargaining.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher and a second by Commissioner O'Brien. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. There are a couple of informational items listed. Does anybody need to say anything about those? If not, we'll move on to consent. Does anybody need to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to pull 8E.
8E,
And I'd like to pull 8K, please.
8K. Okay. Anybody from the public wishing to pull anything else from the consent agenda? Seeing none,
Madam Chair, move as amended.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Flesher and a second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Commissioner Solari, item 8E.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. 8E is just simply a miscellaneous budget amendment. The 4th item, however, it talks about Conservation Lands Department, and sometimes as we go by from week to week, we may forget how busy some of our departments are, and this miscellaneous budget amendment describes 5 different grants for which the county's gotten funds from different organizations, including the IRL, NEP, and different state organizations. It's a total of 5 different grants for over $500,000. And I just want to congratulate the Conservation Lands Department, their staff, for doing really a great job in this. They've been particularly busy the last few years, and I think in a way which is going to benefit all the citizens of our county, making the conservation lands throughout the county accessible and usable by the citizens. So I just think that's a great thing. And with that, Madam Chair, I would move to approve the item.
All right, thank you. Thank you for highlighting that. We have a motion by Commissioner Solari and a second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Commissioner O'Brien, item 8K.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a item where we're amending our resolutions establishing the fair market rental rates for our affordable housing. And unlike Commissioner Solari highlighted an item for all the good things that are going on, I'm highlighting this for the fact that apparently some federal employees had nothing better to do than to say our market rates for affordable housing were actually 80 cents too low. And so we were just below the cutoff by 80 cents, and so we've now had to expend staff time and effort and work to bring it up $1, round it up, so that we now meet the federal guidelines and don't undercharge by 80 cents. So I want to thank our federal partners for keeping us on our toes here for 80 cents. And with that, Bill, I think we can go ahead and move this item and be done with it.
And thank you, Commissioner. What I wanted to point out also, Bill DeBrawl on behalf of the County Attorney's Office, HUD still gives us the highest rating as far as our rental assistance program, and I just wanted to recognize Robin Miller back there, who does a fantastic job.
Yeah, and you know, Bill, I could see if we were over the amount, okay, yeah, you got to bring it down, but we're 80 cents under, and we had to do this, but anyway, just move approval of item 8K, Madam Chair.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien and a second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. With that, we'll move on to public notice items.
Thank you very much. We have a notice of a public hearing which is scheduled for next Tuesday, February 11th. This will be consideration of an ordinance to amend the zoning code and the accompanying zoning map for approximately plus or minus 6.13 acres, which is located north of 53rd Street and west of the Florida East Coast Railway and the existing CMEX facility, which has an address of 3150 53rd Street, Vero Beach, Florida 32967. This will go from A1, which is agricultural district, up to 1 unit per 5 acres, to IG, general industrial district, which is the first property, which is the subject of the rezoning. And then the second property, which is the subject of the rezoning, is 15.85 acres, which is located north of 53rd Street and west and adjacent to the subject property from A1 agricultural district to CH, which is heavy commercial district. And then finally, the third property, which is plus or minus 4.78 acres, located north of 53rd Street and west and adjacent to the subject property from IG, General Industrial District, to CG, which is General Commercial District. This entire ordinance will be quasi-judicial in nature, and again, this is a public hearing scheduled for February 11th, 2020. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to Public Works. 11th Drive Project Developers Agreement, Design, Permitting, Construction, Cost Approval. Mr. Spirico, welcome.
Morning, Commissioners. Rich Berga, Public Works Director. As part of our 2030 comprehensive plan, we have a project to have install a roadway from US 1 north to 37th and then from 37th Street north to 41st Street. This is a project that's in lieu of widening 37th Street from US 1 to Indian River Boulevard due to the cost. So we looked for alternatives and we're moving forward with this portion of the project. As part of this, the Russell family executed a developer's agreement with the Russell family to participate in the construction of 11th Drive from 41st Street south to their south property line. And what I'm bringing before you today is, as part of that agreement, the Russell family will design, permit, and construct the roadway. As part of that agreement, the roadway will consist of 12-foot travel lanes, 5-foot bike lanes, sidewalks, drainage, stormwater treatment, and other improvements for the roadway. Also, as part of that is the developer will construct and contribute to 2 entrances to the Russell property and to the the Riverfront Groves property, and with associated turn lanes on 11th Drive. Staff has been negotiating with the engineer that represents Mr. Russell for the last couple of months to come to an agreement on the cost of the project as per the developer's agreement. So we've agreed to a cost for design permitting of $116,175 for reimbursable costs. That includes $93,210 for the county's cost, and the developer is responsible for $22,965 for their design costs. We've also come to an agreement on the cost of construction. Total cost of construction is $1,289,177, of which $1,205,755 is the county's reimbursable cost, and the developer's portion is $83,421. So this is for the turn lanes that are going to be installed on the roadway as part of access to the Russell property and the Riverfront property. Funding for the county share in the amount of $93,210, and for the share of construction of $1,205,755 is programmed into the capital improvement element in the second and third year of the fiscal year 1920 agreement. The funding is available in the optional sales tax cash forward October 1st to optional sales tax for 37th Street as an alternate project. Staff recommends the board approve funding in the amount of $93,210 for the reimbursement of the county design and permitting costs for to Russell for the portion of 11th Drive, and to approve funding in the amount of not to exceed $1,205,775 for the county reimbursement of construction costs for 11th Drive. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Gentlemen, questions for Mr. Spirka?
One, Rich, I assume that any cost overruns will be picked up by the developer, or will that be future negotiations?
I would hope there's not going to be any cost overrun, but that'll be a conversation that we'll have to have with the engineer. We looked at this pretty hard, the engineer and I. We looked at it real good. We're comfortable, but that doesn't mean there's something there that we missed.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Other questions, staff?
Move staff recommendation.
I have a motion by Commissioner Solari and a second by Commissioner Flesher. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Next item is Citrus Hideaway Subdivision Water Assessment Project, Resolutions 1 and 2. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman. For the record, Vincent Burke, Director of Utility Services. We have the Citrus Hideaway Subdivision Water Assessment Project. I have a quick map to show you where that is located at. So on October 16th of 2018, the board directed staff to proceed ahead with the design and surveying for the water assessment project within the Citrus Hideaway subdivision. This is south of County Road 510. You may recall about 3 weeks ago, somebody was driving a car and sheared off the hydrant off the 16-inch main in that location. We had to put a couple schools under boil water notices, so this is in that direct vicinity. The plan is to come off of the existing hydrant and then do a directional bore close to 300 feet under the 510 roadway and run a 6-inch PVC C900 water main about 710 feet to the south part of the cul-de-sac and install a hydrant there for dead-end purposes, blow-off and fire protection. So we have a supermajority of the folks that are in favor of this project. There are 11 benefiting parcels in this particular area. If you look at the northeast corner, you'll see one property that's not enclosed in the red square. That property is already connected off of the 16-inch water main on the south side of County Road 510. But staff is looking for board approval today for 2 resolutions. The first is the providing resolution, which is shown in attachment 1 with your backup, and the second is the setting resolution, shown in attachment 2, which, if approved today, would then allow staff to go ahead and notice the public hearing, which is tentatively set for Tuesday, March 3rd of 2020 here in the chambers. So staff has 2 recommendations. One is to adopt that first resolution, providing for the installation of the water main within the Citrus Hideaway subdivision, subject to the terms outlined in the attached resolution. The Board of County Commissioners shall establish the applicable interest rate at the time of the final assessment roll once approved. And secondarily, to adopt the resolution setting the time and place of the public hearing to be held here in these chambers on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020 at approximately 9:05 a.m. Certainly available for any questions that the board may have.
Any questions?
Madam Chair, happy to move staff recommendation to adopt the resolution providing for the installation of the water main at Citrus Highway and to adopt the resolution setting the time and place of the public hearing on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020 at approximately 9:05 a.m. at these chambers.
Wonderful. I have a motion by Commissioner Solari and a second by Commissioner Flesher. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Vinnie.
Motion carries. Next item is a developer's agreement with Pleasantville Assisted Living LLC.
On July 26th of 2017, the Indian River County Department of Utility Services issued UCP Utility Construction Permit number 3175. I'm sorry, it's the for lift station 1179. There's various improvements that were needed and required to bring the county lift station up to our current standards, as well as a standby generator due to the severity or the heightened need for backup power if we have storm events. So we just have some before and after pictures of the lift station. Here you can see the existing control panel. There is a telemetry tower that lets us know if and when a pump fails or there's a high level alarm. Very difficult to access to the wet well and the valve vault to the right of the south part of the county. And you picture there, and you can see that it's very difficult to get a large service truck in that grassy area. There was some existing corrosion due to the gases, the corrosive gases, including some of the check valves that you see on the bottom right-hand part of the picture. And this is just an after picture where there were substantial improvements not only to the control panel, the telemetry system, the grounding, cleaning up of that housekeeping pad, so to speak, as well as the access drive that was put in place. So in short, there are substantial improvements that would benefit not only the existing condominiums that were already in place that were using that station, but also the new assisted living facility off of US 1. And so we are respectfully requesting a 50% cost share with the developer through the attached developers agreement, which outlines the terms and conditions of the installation of the various components, as well as the fact that the generator has yet to be installed but still needs to be tested and approved by utility staff. So staff of the utility department is looking for board approval to approve the attached developers agreement with Pleasantville Assisted Living Facility LLC, and if possible to authorize the chairman to execute the attached agreement after final review and approval by the county attorney's office. Available for any questions you may have.
All right, questions?
Madam Chair, just one thing. Please keep the picture up. This is a little bit off topic, but over the weekend I was down in Port St. Lucie, and on a lot of their street corners and wherever you'd see one of these, like a traffic signal control box or the control box here, they've put a wrap around them. And it could be like a Sunset on the Lagoon wrap or egrets or manatees, and they look really nice instead of just a steel box sitting out there being a sore thumb. So just ask the county administrator if you could maybe contact the city manager down there and just ask him what the cost was for those and gather a little information, because I think it'd make our community look a lot nicer having those. And just while I was looking at that made me think of this. But
okay, yeah, we'll do. I've seen those boxes down there, familiar with them, and they have various different.
Yeah, they look really nice, and
birds and things like that on them.
Yeah.
So I'll reach out and see how much that costs.
Okay, awesome. And Madam Chair, with that, I'll move approval of staff recommendation.
Second.
All right. Thank you for that. We have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien with a second by Commissioner Flesher. Anybody wishing to speak on this? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And with that, we'll move on to county attorney's matters. The first item is, I guess it's going to be the update on 4730 40th Avenue, former Gifford Gardens. Mr. DeBrawl, welcome. Or Mr. Shute.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Shute is going to start us out on this presentation, and I'll finish up with a couple of quick comments.
Clean up his mess.
There you go. No.
Always better to go first.
Not at all. Go ahead.
All right. Well, good morning, Commissioners. So, as noted, the agenda item before you is an update on 4730 40th Avenue in Vero Beach, Florida. That's the former Gifford Gardens Apartments. And I'm going to go into a little bit more of the history just to bring everyone in the audience and elsewhere up to speed. But the site is a plus or minus 3.3 acre site. It's zoned RM10, which stands for residential multifamily, up to 10 units per acre. It originally consisted of 55 individual apartments, and there was approximately 6 buildings on the site. Originally constructed in 1970. In 2010, the health, building, and fire inspectors and the sheriff's office conducted an in-depth inspection due to numerous complaints of vandalism, drug use, and prostitution activity. The buildings were declared unsafe in order to be demolished. And at that time, the owners did not contest that order. In November 2010, the BCC ordered the buildings to be demolished, and roughly 6 months later, June 2011, the buildings were demolished at a cost of $85,996.74, which was ultimately reduced to a lien on the property. Now, more recently in 2019, late 2019, the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee had talked about this site as a possible site for future affordable housing, and they directed Commissioner Solari to bring that concept, or the idea at least, to the board back in December of last year. At that time, the board directed the county attorney's office to look at the issue of foreclosure and whether we can acquire the property as a potential site for affordable housing. Now, just a quick overview. The subject site is shown in red rectangle on the air photo above you, and just for a few labels, you can see 40th Avenue. Victory Park Apartments is directly to the north and abuts the property. Directly to the east, we have Taylor Point Apartments. And just for a little more context, we have 43rd Avenue, which has the Victor Hart Senior Community Enhancement Complex, the Gifford Youth Achievement Center, Gifford Aquatic Center off to the west. And zooming in just real quick, here's a photo now. You can see it's all cleared. And a few trees on the site and some old remnants of the old entrance for the apartment complex, former apartment complex. Here's a quick zoning map. RM10 is the brown colored, and you have RS6 single family up to 6 units per acre surrounding the property on the south, west, and east. Now, with respect to the financial liabilities on the property, we have code liens and taxes, and we have a demolition lien, an order conditionally setting the fine that totals $97,006.74. We have taxes dealing with tax certificates as well as taxes for 2018, 2019 of $7,185.35. We have utility bills, which are the large component of this. We have a base facility charge of $142,000 roughly. We have interest and penalties of over $281,000. This is as of December 2019, by the way. The total of those in December was $424,330.85. And there's a monthly service charge of $1,206.81 accumulating each month. And it includes 55 water and 55 sewer multifamily residential ERUs, equivalent residential units. Now, in terms of credits that are on the property, so there's impact fees that go with the land and that property in this situation. We have 55 credits. And we always, with impact fees, we always looked at the current value of, listed in the current impact fee schedule. So the current impact fee schedule, and we always do it by categories too. We can't commingle funds between pots of money, between public buildings, emergency services, law enforcement, Parks and Rec. So kind of broke it down in the staff report individually for 55, and it's in the blue text. But just for the sake of a total number, 264,900 is the total number. Now, realistically, under the current zoning, you can only get a maximum of 33 units on the property. So I added on this slide in red there the actual dollar amounts for 33 units. And the total would be $158,928 of impact fee credits. So in summary, we have a total of, between liens and taxes, of $528,522.94. We have impact fees for credits of up to $264,900, but again, reduced to $158,928 based on the realistic development intensity. Now, in the staff report, we talk about two options: a land purchase and factors to consider, and then we talk about the foreclosure and factors to consider. So with the land purchase, we have a property appraiser lists the current value of the land at $62,271 as the market value. With a land purchase, it obligates the county to pay the outstanding taxes and redeem the tax certificates of $7,185.35. County would have title to the property. The title search of the property has been ordered in this case to determine the existence or status of other liens on the property. And the county as owner could place deed restrictions on the property to reserve for affordable housing. Now, in contrast to foreclosure, some factors to consider. We have litigation costs yet to be determined. Lawsuit filing fee, $905. To clear title, estimating $2,500 to $4,000, and that would process would entail naming previous owners listed in the chain of title as defendants. Most previous owners are dissolved LLCs in this case, so you have directors would have to be found and served. The previous owners are deceased. Their heirs would have to be located and named as defendants. The county could prosecute the case, ultimately have the property auctioned for sale only to have a third party purchase the property at the auction. And then the third party purchaser may have plans for property other than affordable housing or hold the property as an investment for the future, and the county would not be able to control the future use of the property. Now, with respect to funding, that would be provided via budget amendment from the general fund, cash forward of October 1st. And as Bill was saying, he's going to go a little more detail into the foreclosure process and the purchase as well. But for the sake of recommendation at this point, staff recommends that an arm's length negotiation to purchase the property be initiated with Mr. Green, the current owner of the property, and present the board with a contract for purchase and sale. If a contract cannot be negotiated, the board hereby, the request is that the board authorize the county attorney's office to file a foreclosure suit against the current and former owners and keep the board apprised of the suit's progress. So at this point, I'll hand it off to Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, the two ways that the county can get ownership of this property is, number one, just an arm's length negotiation with Mr. Green, who acquired the property from MACWCP. That firm, the Alphabet Soup, purchased it at the tax deed sale back in November 2012. The price there was $84,900. The taxes are all unpaid. There's certificates out on the property since 2015. If we would go ahead and try and purchase the property from Mr. Green, it would be via quitclaim deed. I would anticipate that we would offer him something along the lines of the price that he purchased the property at, which was $5,900. Then we would be responsible for paying the taxes. But as of this morning, I got some very good news as far as the title report, being that the only liens outstanding on the title report, aside from the tax certificates, are county liens. Our code enforcement lien, our utility lien, our demolition lien that Mr. Shute already told us about are the only surviving liens after the tax sale. tax deed sale back in 2012, and also the passage of time that would knock out the some 50 other liens that were on the property before the 2012 tax sale. So the estimate that Mr. Shute gave as far as if we wouldn't be able to reach an arm's length negotiation to purchase the property with Mr. Green and we would have to go to foreclosure, the costs associated with finding all of the other dissolved LLC officers and corporate people and things like that would be eliminated by virtue of the passage of time and also the issuance of the tax deed and the tax deed sale. So the recommendation that I would have is that, you know, just what Mr. Shute said, instruct staff to continue to try and contact Mr. Green. We've already written him a letter. There's been no response there. I think we can use some a little bit more aggressive methods to try and find out where he is and see if we can't start some sort of negotiations. If not, if the negotiations are not fruitful, go ahead and foreclose on the property. I think that our liens would be sufficient enough to scare anybody away from purchasing at the auction, because the beginning bid at the auction would be the amount of the debt that's on the property. And if we can stick a number like $494,000 as the opening bid, we would be in good shape there. The only bad part about that is that if we would acquire title to the property, Mr. Burke would be very saddened that the utility liens outstanding would go away, as well as the demolition liens and things like that. So that's just the news that I got this morning as far as the title report from Atlantic Coastal Land Title and Jason Beal. I'd like to thank him for his quick work on this, and staff's recommendation stands it is, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for staff? Yes, Mr. Solari.
So I am, of course, greatly concerned with Mr. Burke's well-being and how this might impact him. But wouldn't it be the case that, in truth, the utility department has received no cash from this property for about 15 or so years?
That's correct.
So his department, fortunately, has not been relying on the cash flow from this property in any way. And actually, if we did take it over, we may be able to, over time, see that people actually live there, connect to his utility department, and actually start paying him. So we could actually say that this is being done for the well-being of Mr. Burke and his utility department.
It would be a balm to put on the wound.
Good. So I think as a board, we can realize that by going forward with this matter today, we would not be impacting Mr. Burke's well-being in any way. Thank you very much.
Commissioner O'Brien.
So, Bill, if I'm clear, if we do go through foreclosure, the opening bid would be the $400,000 and something. Assuming nobody bids, then if there's no bidder, then it just reverts to the county, and then all the liens go away. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then if we were to negotiate a purchase price, obviously we've already paid for the demolition lien, because we paid that. We would have to pay the $7,000 in the tax certificates. And then the question Commissioner Solari referred to is, well, I think we could talk Vinnie into waiving the penalties and interest. Would we pay the $142,000 for the saving the use fee to, make him whole in that respect?
I'm not sure if I
we would have that option to pay that $142,000 of the outstanding base facility charges.
Yes, that would be, I guess, a question of budget. To me, it seems like it would be taking money out of one pocket and putting it into the other.
Right.
But
in the past, when we've done some of these amnesty things, we've always tried to make sure that at least those consumption charges are paid back to the utility and not have them shoulder the whole burden on something like this.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's all I have now. Thank you.
Commissioner Fleischer?
No, I'm good.
Commissioner Zork?
Yes. If we went the sale or purchase under a quick claim route, You have the other outstanding certificates, which would have to be redeemed, the prior certificate holders?
Correct.
And what kind of once you have control of those, then you have what I call the cleansing period. It's got another legal name for that. But once you have those, isn't there another process you have to go through that's somewhat lengthy to kind of get it where you get Atlantic Title would be able to issue us clear title?
I anticipated that we may have to go ahead and clear title by a quiet title suit.
Okay, right.
But looking at the liens that are outstanding on the property, they belong to the county. There'd be no reason to quiet title because we're the only ones that would have an interest in the property if we would be able to get that from Mr. Green. Plus, in past experience, I know that title companies will go ahead and insure title 2 years after a tax deed sale has been completed. So the tax deed here sale was completed back in 2012, 2014. I'm confident that a title company, if the county were to go ahead and convey this to a nonprofit or something like that, they would be able to use this property as collateral at a bank, and also they would be able to get title insurance on it.
Okay.
And so I'm very pleased with the report that we received this morning.
Right, that is good news. And I'm kind of in the camp as Commissioner O'Brien on we should treat this as we had other amnesty plans. The Utilities Department, yes, it is a government entity, but it's an enterprise fund that functions independently of general fund operations. It's a standalone operation. I'd be potentially leaning to do something like that, maybe with a little bit of a adjustment to it, but something that takes that actual hard dollars out, not the penalties and interest, but the others, and maybe addressing that in some fashion. And but it's a good opportunity.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
On that one, I'm going to weigh in on that because I think that for what we're trying to do with Gifford Gardens property and what's in the best interest of the county as a whole, could you put up the sheet with the impact fees on it? That we ought to, when it comes time to make the decision, we ought to just zero out the balance. I understand that the utility is an enterprise fund, but this has been providing no value to the utility for years. But what does potentially lay or remain with the land is $265,000 of impact fees paid that could be theoretically used. That is something of value. But in reality, if we go forward with this, we're going to have somewhere between 20 and 24 properties on it. So $160,000, $180,000 of impact fees will never be used and just woof back over to the Utilities Department, which would be greater than the $142,000 for the base facilities charges. So again, the Utility Department is not being harmed in any way whatsoever if we go forward by this, and it just essentially cleans dead matter off of their financial statements. So that's just, for when the argument comes up, that's part of the other side of it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, Jason.
Yes, Madam Chair, I do want to address I'm hearing a lot of discussion on the utility impact fees. I think Commissioner Solari makes a good point that this is a public policy issue. However, I think the board will need to make that determination as we go forward with what to do there. It needs to be a differentiator that if the liens get wiped on property and private ownership, then the ERUs go away. And I think the plan here is to retain those ERUs. So that's one differentiator that we need to make sure is clear if we're planning to keep the value of the water and sewer ERUs there. That would be a differentiator, and we need to make a policy decision on that. But I just want to make sure we're not setting a precedent that this is what happens for other providers, because in those amnesty projects we've done before, and when we made the change to how we handle those delinquent ERUs, there's not an option where someone's allowed to not pay and then they retain the ERUs. So I could see crafting something that's different here due to the public purpose. I could also see that perhaps if there could be some discussion if something needs to be paid, I would say that there's 55 ERUs on there. You can't currently build 55 units on there. So I would say the total value of those, and hence what utilities may be justified in charging on a going forward basis would not be the 55 units, but maybe something more like the 33 units just as a stopping off point. But I think that we will need to make a conscious decision with how to handle those ERUs, and we don't need to decide exactly how today, but it's something that I think we need to realize that it is a difference from how we would be handling other ERU delinquencies out there.
And that brings up a good point then. So if we go through the foreclosure process and nobody bids, so everything gets waived, is that correct?
Correct.
And then the ERUs would revert back to the utilities department.
They would.
Okay, so Vinny, what is a new ERU? Because if that happens and somebody wants to develop the property, they would now have to buy an ERU. So what would a new ERU run?
That's correct. So for water, it's $1,300, and sewer is $2,796. So total $4,096 for one water and one sewer ERU.
Okay, so and again, this is something we can decide later, I agree, but if we look at the 182 and divide by 33, I get 4,500 and change, and it's almost 4,000 for a new ERU, so kind of factor that in as far as, the cost to buy a new ERU compared to paying off the utility ERU bill. But, and I agree, I think this is something we can decide later once we decide how we want to go. So I'd go ahead and make a recommendation that we go with staff's recommendation to try to negotiate a purchase price with Mr. Green at the level of making him whole. I don't think the appraised value is an accurate value considering all the outstanding liens, but I think if we could,
Or anything.
get Mr. Green whole and maybe just a tiny sweetener to make it worth his time. But that's kind of, and I'll leave that to staff to kind of come up with a number, but I'm thinking lower is better, but that'd be my motion, Madam Chair.
No second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, a second by Commissioner Flesher. Commissioner Solari.
May I offer an amendment to the maker of the motion? And that would be that if nothing's accepted within a reasonable time, that we authorize the county attorney to go ahead with the foreclosure proceedings.
We really wouldn't have any other option, is that correct, Bill? I mean,
That's
one
correct.
or two.
And we're in a good position for the foreclosure, quite frankly.
I think if Mr. Green wants to get at least his money back instead of losing everything through foreclosure, he would be willing to sell, right?
I think it'd be a strong offer that we'd be able to make to him, yes, sir.
So I will gladly accept the friendly amendment and instruct staff that if we haven't had any contact back from Mr. Green within 3 months, that we move forward with the foreclosure.
Very
Is that good with you, Commissioner?
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Yes.
Second, so amended. All right. We have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien, a second by Commissioner Flesher. Any further comment? Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item was tabled from January 21st, so we could have Commissioner O'Brien here for the discussion.
Thank you very much.
Disposition of real property ordinance.
I just will say y'all tackled a very contentious rezoning issue without me, but this little thing y'all couldn't do? Well,
We missed you. That's
Well, I appreciate that.
All right, thank you. As the chair stated, this has been tabled from our last meeting on December 10th. The board had directed the county attorney's office to draft an ordinance to allow for commercial realtors to be used for the disposal of real property. County attorney's office has drafted language for your consideration today that includes several different options. The first is using the real estate agent to market the property. Second would be that we could use a traditional bid process, but it would also include a minimum bid included as that. Third process could be that for properties which we own that are in conjunction with FDOT projects that we could somehow piggyback off of or utilize the FDOT process that is underway. And then finally, there may be examples where an RFP may be appropriate. Those might be for properties that the county may not necessarily be interested in just the price, but maybe also what is the future development of the property. So the county attorney's office drafted up an ordinance or an outline of an ordinance with all 4 of those different opportunities or options. County attorney's office just recommends that the board consider the different options that have been presented, decide which ones to contain in an ordinance, and then authorize the county attorney's office to move forward with publishing and finalizing a ordinance for public hearing. And with that, I turn it back over to the board for discussion.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Well, Madam Chair, I'll weigh in since you were holding this. I think the more options gives us greater flexibility and is the better path to choose. As far as using a real estate agent, I think we can do a request for qualifications just like we do engineering firms and other companies, and come up with a short list of 3 or 4 or something, and then just rotate through like we do. And I realize that there will be real estate agents that may not be happy, but there's a lot of engineering firms that don't get picked either, and life goes on. So I would be more in favor of the ordinance reflecting all of the options available to us. I do like the fact that through the bid or the public auction process that we would set a floor. I know that a lot of times, and former Commissioner Davis used to always promote the absolute auctions where there's no floor, no base, and that way there will be a sale. But I think with taxpayer money that we should at least have some kind of base or floor so that somebody doesn't come in and, a house on 26th Street we paid $80,000 for doesn't go for $100 or something ridiculous. So I think we could, and it doesn't have to be a huge number, but I think something just to make sure we get some value. So I do like the fact that bid and auction process would have a base to it. So with that, Madam Chair, if there's nothing else or if anybody wants to weigh in, but.
Yes, well, Madam Chair, I agree. I would be happier if it was even more than 3 on the rotation. I believe that would be more robust. I'd like to see at least 5 where we'd have a little more competition and a little bit more free understanding of what's to be done. So I'd like to see a larger number.
I think the only reason to have a smaller number is, I don't know, there'd be a whole lot of properties. So if we do 5, it may be 10 years before you get through the list. But I really don't care. Maybe we can just leave that to staff to, once the qualifications come in, they can kind of.
As long as it's on a rotation basis.
Yeah, it'd be a rotation, but I'm not hard set on any particular number. Just, I think, give staff the freedom to say, okay, we got in 7 requests for qualifications. Here's our top 4. Then I'd be happy with that.
I will work with the purchasing manager on making sure we work on that.
More transparent.
Yeah. Okay.
Be happy to.
Any other comments?
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner.
I see where the original conversation on this was on the sale of property, but we do have a number of corridors where we like to, when property comes for sale, be the first bidder on the corridors, whether it's 26th Street, Old Dixie, 43rd Avenue, other locations where we have those funds set aside to purchase property when it comes on the market for sale. Would adding both sale and purchase, where the agents that are selected can put out a watch list on all of those corridors, so the moment something becomes available, many times it's in the system a few days before the actual sign goes up, which is when, I know I've called Jason and said, hey, there's a sign on this piece or a sign on another piece, and they've kind of gotten the staff into gear to try to negotiate something. But there may be some benefit of also on the purchase side, making sure, and on those it doesn't cost the county anything because those transactions are paid for by the seller. It's just making sure that the county is first at the table to look at purchasing those in those particular corridors, and just those corridors that we have current buying programs in place.
So, Commissioner Zork, I think you have a very good point, but I think it kind of gets muddled here. And I think maybe the best thing is have Jennifer bring back, or the right-of-way folks, what they do now, and then we could tweak that policy. And I think keeping it, this is the sell side, and what they do is on the buy side. And I think hearing what they do, and then if we still feel there's a shortfall, then, we can change that. But I think it'd be better just keep this clean on the sell side myself. But I understand your point and think, we should hear from Jennifer at some point of what they do, and then we can tweak it from there.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments on this?
Well, Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and make a recommendation that we have the county attorney draft the ordinance that includes all of the proposed methods of selling real property, and that staff will have the discretion as far as selecting qualified real estate agents. A reasonable number, but enough that would provide plenty of transparency and opportunity, and make sure that there's enough out there.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien and a second by Commissioner Flesher. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And with that, we'll move on to Commissioners' matters. The first item is Commissioner Zork, a discussion on natural gas pipeline extension.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Going back to last April, Girard Equipment was looking at relocating either to St. Lucie County or to another facility in Indian River County. Knowing that Florida Power and Light wasn't going to keep the T&D facility at the airport for an extended period of time, it was brought to Mr. Girard's attention that that facility may be something that he could lease from the city of Vero Beach. This past just a few weeks ago in January, that lease was approved by the city of Vero Beach, and what comes with that is a cooperative agreement with City Gas that involved a grant from the airport, line extension fees that were bundled into the agreement to bring gas to the Girard facility, which now brings it within close proximity to our sheriff's complex. Just looking over some of the prior propane costs that the jail runs off of, preliminarily it looks like we could have a 3-year or less cost recovery by converting the jail from propane to natural gas. And my request today is to have the county administrator explore in more detail with City Gas the potential savings that may be now that the first project of bringing the gas to what I call Airport West down the street from the jail complex. What would it cost to convert the jail facility to propane? What are the savings? What's our cost recovery? But I think when you're in that 3-year or less cost recovery time frame, it's something we should give consideration to. And there's a representative from City Gas here, Tim Knutson, if anybody has any questions.
I do have one. I spoke to Mr. Girard last week, and he said one thing that City Gas is providing is there's some type of power generating unit that they're hooking up to the gas line that just because of the flow, the volume of the gas is what's turning a turbine generating electricity. So I think we want one of those too.
Good morning. Tim Knutson, I'm an account advisor for Florida City Gas. That is correct. It's what it's called is an Edison unit. It's something that Florida Power and Light has been working on. We're actually going to install one up here on the Girard project and another one down in Miami.
No. It's not going to Miami, Tim.
Well, it was a big fight just to get it here.
In River County.
And it's a test bed. These things are just coming out. It's pretty neat technology. I'm not an expert in that. I can tell you about selling gas, but that kind of technology is above my pay grade. But we certainly look forward to seeing how this operates and move forward from there. We love this project. We've been trying to work on getting gas through the airport area. We were successful in getting to Piper Aircraft a year or so ago, so we've got Piper on natural gas now, and this project just will move us over to that west side of the airport, give us the opportunity to serve Jackie Robinson and all those gas customers along Aviation and on the 43rd and move on to the jail. Right now we're looking at a timeline of around May 1st to be up to the T&D facility, and then once we have that line in, move forward and pushing that line up towards the jail.
Well, Madam Chair, also, could you explain how all these extensions, whether it's Piper or Girard, there's how that formula works in a general term. Everybody is paid incrementally along the way to get the gas to a point.
Sure. What we're allowed to do is we can spend up to 6 years of expected revenues on behalf of a customer before that customer comes out of pocket. So the more gas a customer uses, the more money we can spend to put pipe in the ground. In this case, we had about $190,000 overage on getting to the T&D project over to that building, and fortunately, the city got the grant from the state to offset that $190,000, so there wouldn't be any out-of-pocket to get over to that facility. We do the same thing with moving up to the jail. We take what the usage is for the facility. We plug that into our model. It gives us how much money we can spend, and then whatever the overage is, it goes to the customer, and the customer pays it whether through a grant like we did with the airport, or the county gets a grant, or the customer writes us a check, and then we put the pipe in the ground. And then we use those cost savings to show that, you're not going to lose money on your investment, because after year 3, you're going to start making money on that deal. And that's how we're allowed to do that.
Well, sorry. For me, I'm happy to go forward with this as long as it's without the government subsidizing the extension. So, I mean, I don't want to put us on a path where we're going to basically interfere with the private sector, our present provider or Florida Gas, and make up the difference. I mean, if it meets your model, I think it's great, and we should, but I don't think we should be injecting ourselves into the private sector activities like this and subsidizing another individual private company. So that's my thoughts on it.
I don't think subsidizing is the right word to use here. The revenue model only allows them to extend it so far, and to get it the rest of the way is what I call the out-of-pocket fee. It's not subsidizing. If we're going to get our investment back in 3 years, that's a great opportunity for the taxpayer to then save money for the next 30 years. So I look at it differently than the way you're looking at it.
Well, absolutely.
Right.
Interesting. Thank you, Madam Chair. Interesting point. And while we're together here, the Sheriff's Office has reduced their dependency on gas due to outsourcing the food delivery.
Right.
They're not cooking as much.
Right.
It's for heating and warm water.
Right.
Hot water.
Yes, sir.
So with that, we're suggesting, and 2 points. One is we're suggesting that we have a recovery of 3 years. Where do we get there?
You get, whatever your line extension cost over and above their line extension allocation, if that's, let's just use even numbers, if that's $100,000 and over 3 years you save $100,000, then after year 4 going forward, those savings continue to save the taxpayers' monies going forward. What I used informally was got copies of the 12 months prior billing of propane deliveries to the sheriff's complex. Now there may have been some adjustments since those were requested. That's why I said I kind of just did a 30,000 foot view, share that information with City Gas. How would it work out, what potentially the numbers might be, but it would really be for the administrator to get down into the details to see, does this make sense to do or not?
That would be City Gas's determination.
Yeah, well, what we do is we have gotten I guess we got this probably back in September, October, which was that previous 12 months usage by the jail. And it's just a matter of converting how much propane the jail used over that 1 year period, converted over into natural gas. It's a little bit different in the way it's measured. And then we have an idea now of how much gas the jail actually uses. So then all we do is punch that model in, and it gives us an exact amount that we can spend on behalf of the customer to run that gas line. So, and I understand your concern that we're trying to reduce that cost at the jail, and I'm an Indian River guy, so I love that. So we're not looking to, skew any numbers at this point.
So if I could make a suggestion, it seems like we're talking kind of hypothetically. We don't really have any real numbers, so perhaps the best thing to do is to ask staff to get with City Gas and bring us something back so we actually know what we're talking about.
I think that's what he's asking.
Yeah. We just, and with Commissioner Zork putting this on the agenda, it was basically, this is our next step, is moving on to the Girard facility and getting gas at that point, and that brings us that much closer up to the jail. And the jail would be our natural next step, because that's the next large energy user up there, on the, into that part of the county.
Commissioner Solari?
For me, there's also a bigger issue here. I don't understand if this is about the sheriff's facilities, why the sheriff isn't here. And I don't understand why.
We pay the utilities.
I understand who pays,
Right.
but I also understand who's responsible for it.
Right.
And I don't understand why one commissioner is basically micromanaging the sheriff's departments and activities. I mean, I always thought we had enough to do without injecting ourselves into the day-to-day activities of different constitutional officers. Just my view. But I find this to be absolutely the wrong path. I mean, if you thought there was savings to it, I think the right way for you to have gone was to have a conversation with the sheriff and let him go forward with it and come before us if he needed to. But this looking at every little aspect of the organization and then trying to micromanage it week after week, I find to be the wrong way of going about government in this county. So for that reason, I'll be voting against this today.
Well, I look at any time an opportunity to save the taxpayers' money should be explored if it's of a significant amount. I think this, in my mind, qualifies to at least have the county administrator explore it, bring us back his findings, his recommendation, and leave the decision for him to bring us back something.
There's the way of exploring it and the right way of exploring it, so you follow tenets of good government. That's what's being lost today.
Was that some form of a motion?
Yes, make a motion to have the county administrator reach out to the city gas and any other parties, including the sheriff, if he'd like to participate, to explore any cost-saving options. There may be extending natural gas to the jail. A little bit long-winded, but I think you.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Zork.
Second.
Second by Commissioner O'Brien. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Solari dissenting. All right, we'll move on to Commissioner O'Brien's matters. Commissioner O'Brien, first item, naming of the first floor meeting room at the library.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. If the board will remember, several months back, we had a few people from the public, after Ms. Snyder had passed, that wanted us to name the main library after Mary. And I didn't think the board was ready to move in that direction, but since then, staff has been working with the Friends of the Library, and the idea is that there's a first floor meeting room that would be a very appropriate place to be named after Mary Snyder. And so our policy requires this to be brought forward by a commissioner, so I have it here on the agenda for that purpose. Mike and anybody can fill in any of the details we're missing, but I believe that the Friends of the Library are meeting tomorrow, and they are considering to kick in some of the funds to pay for the plaque. And I would just like to ask the board to consider moving forward with naming the first floor meeting room of the main library after Mary Snyder, and that we would maybe cost share 50-50 with the Friends of the Library for the cost of the plaque and the installation and such like that. So.
Second.
Okay, and I don't know, Mike is here if there's any questions of staff, but.
Is there any questions of staff? No? All right, well, we have a motion by Commissioner O'Brien and a second by myself. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioners. It means a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Our pleasure. All right, Commissioner O'Brien?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. My second item is, it came to my attention that there's a House Bill 1237 and Senate Bill 1698 that make it sound like it's the state taking steps to end puppy mills, and the board will recall that last year we did pass an ordinance banning the retail sale of dogs and cats. Like any other preemption bill from the state, they're going to assume all the regulation, which I think is a farce. And of course, buried in there is a preemption that prevents any local governments from passing any type of regulation on retail pet stores. So it is a preemption. Brian will give us an update on it, but I don't think we need to add it to our formal legislative policy list, because we do have a founding principle that we support home rule. And since this is a preemption, I think we can ask Brian and our team to keep an eye on this, just under that founding principle of protecting home rule. But Brian, if you could just give us an update on where the bills are now and what's going on in Tallahassee, please.
Yeah, Brian Sullivan, Legislative Affairs and Communications Manager. I agree with Commissioner O'Brien that as far as setting or adopting a standalone policy for this is not necessary, because it does fall within the guiding principles that we already adopted in our legislative program that basically authorizes the county to advocate against any policy which would preempt the ability of the county to regulate in a certain area. So it falls within that policy. As far as these bills specifically and their prospects for this year, I would say not very good. Yesterday, the House version has not gotten any committee hearings so far. The Senate version was actually on the agenda in the Senate Innovation and Technology Committee yesterday, and it was not considered. So it's still got 3 committees to go through. The second committee is an appropriations subcommittee chaired by Senator Mayfield. I spoke with their office this morning, and they don't anticipate meeting after next week, most likely. So the fact that that would be the second committee it would still have to go through would probably leads me to believe that these are both don't have a good shot this year. But we will keep it on the radar.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, unless any commissioner feels we need a vote, I'd just say this is discussion, and Brian will keep an eye on things, and we'll keep an eye on it.
That was Marty.
All right.
So with that, if there's no other thing, then I'm good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. And with that, there's nothing else on our
Madam
agenda
Chair?
till 10:30.
Since we have this couple minutes before the 10:30 break, I wanted to extend a thank you to Commissioner O'Brien and the others. We were in Tallahassee last week. We did have the opportunity to have the Secretary of Department of Transportation and Senator Mayfield speak. Peter O'Brien was more towards the front of the room, so when the issue of elite and the passenger cap came up, Commissioner O'Brien made sure we got the attention of the Secretary of Department of Transportation as well as Senator Mayfield. I think that really helped get the ball moving on this interim 3-year solution. So hats off to Commissioner O'Brien and the others that were with us in Tallahassee last week that pressed that issue with the Department of Transportation and Senator Mayfield to bring it to the good conclusion that it has. It is a gap. It is a temporary fix, but at least it makes things continue going forward.
Fantastic. We always appreciate all the commissioners advocating for our community, so thank you for that. And with that, we will be on break until 10:30. So it'll be a long break. I'll call the meeting back to order. Or
maybe not.
Maybe not. Can I read it without?
There's nobody recording.
Here we are. Thank you.
Live.
All right. At this time, I'm going to make an announcement that the attorney-client session will commence regarding settlement negotiations and/or strategy sessions related to litigation expenditures and the litigation of Indian River County versus 22 beachfront properties located between and including 9586 Doubloon Drive and, but not including, 1820 Wabasso Beach Road, Vero Beach, Florida, 32963. Pending in the Circuit Court of the 19th Judicial Circuit in 4 Indian River County, Florida, case number 31, 2018, CA 000881. It is estimated that the attorney-client session will last 45 minutes and will be held in the County Commissioners Conference Room located on the 2nd floor of this building. Attending the attorney-client session will be Commissioners Joseph E. Flesher, Vice Chairman, Tim Zork, Peter D. O'Brien, Bob Solari, and me, Susan Adams, Chairman. Also present will be County Attorney Dylan Reingold, County Administrator Jason E. Brown, and a certified court reporter. At this time, we'll ask that those attending the attorney-client session to please go to the County Commissioners Conference Room. At the conclusion of the attorney-client session, the meeting will be reopened. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Call the County Commission meeting back to order. Wonderful. The time is now 10:58. The attorney-client session is terminated, and we are back in our regular meeting. And if there's nothing else for the good of the order, we stand adjourned.
All righty. All that for that.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
Always
you.
a pleasure.
Fine job, Madam Chair.